Welcome to This is AI, a podcast brought to you by West Monroe. We're going to show you, step by step, how to build, use, and master AI to create the most value for your business.
I think today what we'd love to do for you is we're going to demo something that we built. There's a press release out there. It's called Nigel. It's a generative AI interactive platform. We're going to walk through. We'll also talk a little bit about LLMs, large language models. We'll compare them. What are some good use cases at a high level for the different architectures out there, and we'll leave you with some thoughts on where generative AI is today. Maybe some stuff to watch that's interesting, some current limitations you should be aware of, and some future advancements. But just a quick reminder, I'm EJ. I work in the AI space at West Monroe. Brownie.
My name is Erik Brown, also referred to as Brownie, and I am a humanoid based on a retrained clone of the Matrix. And I just took the red pill so I can see how far that rabbit hole EJ was talking about goes.
On brand.
Very nice. Yep. Ryan Elmore, aka Elmo, innovation fellow, head of our data science practice. I'll stop there.
All right.
No,
good.
Go on. Tell us more.
I enjoy long walks on the beach.
Excellent. Why don't we hop into a quick demo of Nigel here, and show you what we're talking about. We built this as for a couple of different reasons. I'll cover those at a high level and then hand off to Brownie. A lot of organizations want to leverage the power of generative AI at their company, but they don't want to expose proprietary information, confidential data to potential retraining and inclusion in external public-facing models like ChatGPT. We built a platform here at West Monroe powered by Azure and OpenAI that manages our proprietary information effectively and gives our employee base access to conversational generative AI for productivity improvement, brainstorming, the common tasks you might engage with. But we also have a differentiator from a prompt library perspective. Brownie, you want to show us what we're talking about here?
Yeah. And we called it Nigel because it's British. I apologize to anyone who's actually British for that.
Have you considered doing voiceover work?
Why did we call it Nigel? So that's an interesting story. And it's actually a play off of N, next, G, generation, L of leaders, because that is our mission. So that is Nigel. And we believe that Nigel will become the only leader of the future as it replaces all humans. So, wait, no, do we believe that? We don't believe.
I don't think we believe that. I think
I
this
think
will be
supplement.
we covered in our previous podcast.
I just went
this is a
against
productivity
everything
tool.
we said across the whole podcast.
Yes. This is a tool.
So-
It's not an overlord.
And just to go back on what EJ said, what's great about this is we've been able to curate with this prompt library some kind of pre-trained prompts that perform common tasks that we execute, which it's a helpful way for people that haven't used in business scenarios, OpenAI, ChatGPT, just to get them started with something that's practical, right? So this is crowdsourced too, so people can add new prompts. We can look at usage of these prompts. In the future, we might even be able to look at which prompts are more appropriate for different versions of ChatGPT. So right now, this is running 3.5 Turbo as a default, but we could default some of these prompts to 4.0 or others with larger context windows, depending on the need. And again, also, as EJ alluded to, this is all running in a version in our instance of Azure, OpenAI, and the GPT interactions in our own version and instance of Azure, so we can upload proprietary documents and not worry about them getting exposed outside of that instance. So we have a number of pre-trained prompts that you can see. We're not going to go through all of these. I think where we'll start is we have one. Where is it? User story generator. So this one has been actually kind of surprised. We didn't expect it to have the utility that it has, right? This has been very helpful for our team starting from scratch. The way this is set up and pre-trained with prompts behind the scenes is it's set to be kind of a product manager generating user stories, and it is aware of certain user stories that we've written for different functional scenarios in different industries. I'm going to go with a broad user story. And I'm going to say, hey, we want to write a clone of Twitter. I don't know exactly how this one's going to work, and our prompts that are kind of pre-trained as part of this or pre-configured as part of this might throw us off. Well, let's see how it does. Okay, could you please let me know the type of application or platform you're working on? Well, I said Twitter.
Like
let's just say
networking
social media.
Yeah.
See how it does. Got it. Now I'm ready to receive the user stories from you. Well, come on, man. You should know the names of Twitter user stories, you piece of garbage.
So aggressive, Brownie.
Woof.
Oh, apologize. Oh. How about try to generate some example story names? You can tell that we did not script this. Ooh.
Well, there we go.
Those are good. Give me more details. Okay, so now it's actually elaborating on these stories and providing acceptance criteria. So, common user stories. What's up?
Yeah, I was going to say, I tell you what, right off the bat, we think about acceptance criteria for that first user story. As a user, I want to create a profile so that I can share information about myself with others. And your acceptance criteria, the user should be able to enter their name, username, bio, and provide, a picture during profile creation. These are the common types of user stories and acceptance criteria that, as a former product owner, I have written a billion times roughly, and I could stand to never write them again. So if I could start with a boilerplate like this and then edit from there to match the unique functionality of the application I'm building, that's a huge time savings.
You also notice the acceptance criteria there. It says it should be able to compose a tweet with a maximum character limit. It should put it on the profile and the main feed. So it did know about Twitter. It actually lied to you.
It did. It lied to me, but I was persistent. It was polite, and we eventually got there. And I think with this as context, then we can get into more details. Like, for example, can you create a story that groups users I'm following? I'm being kind of vague on intentionally just to see where it goes here.
And you said, can you grate, not create? And it still figured it out.
Yep. Another great example. Again, so what's great about these prompts is that all of the warming of the chatbot to perform a particular task is done behind the scenes, right? And we can evolve that over time, right? As we learn what's effective and what's not effective. And we've just had great feedback from our folks on how useful this is. Now, eventually we can evolve Nigel to be more intelligent about projects that we've done, documentation that we have, right? And this can expand further. But we found this to be a very helpful place to start, to just get people more comfortable with, a baseline for prompt engineering, which is a whole episode we talked about. That's an art and a science. Just allow us to see what's helpful for people as we look at, folks adding other prompts to the library and looking at the usage of these libraries.
That's a great point, Brownie, too. I think that's the power here, too, is a lot of these platforms, that organizations are building are prescriptive. I'm going to give you specific things that you can do, or they're incredibly vague. Go ahead and chat and do stuff. Good luck. And what we're doing here is we're trying to build a culture of iterative product improvement and innovation across the organization with generative AI, and help users identify places where they can see strong efficiency, strong value, or really great support in their day-to-day work, and then turn that into a repeatable prompt that can be shared across the organization, used by others, and potentially improved by other folks that can copy those prompts, do their own edits, and share out different versions of them as well. So what we want to do is we want to create, like I said, this culture that allows folks to learn, upskill each other, share, and improve the platform over time. And that is a key differentiator when you think about implementation of tools like this, really helping change the organization from a grassroots level and drive innovation from the people who need it on the line.
Yeah, we just finished up our knowledge training last week where we showcased some of this. And one of the pieces we talked about was be conversational with it, right? Exactly what you just did, Brownie. You don't just say, hey, I need this thing. Cool, copy, paste, go. Say, no, piece of garbage. You don't know what you're talking about. Let's try it again.
And it was very polite, even though I was incredibly rude. And but I think it's been shocking, to your point, Ryan, about that almost gives better results, as it turns out. I don't know if that has to do with the training behind the scenes, but
well, that's one of those things.
The more natural you are, it seems like the better results you get.
That's spot on, Brownie, and that's something that we've talked about with our clients as well. There's a lot of people who are like, it doesn't do math well, or it doesn't do X, Y, or Z well. Well, that's because it's trained on conversational language. It's trained on human language. So if you have an interaction with many, not all, but many of these large language models using natural language, you get better responses because it is able to more effectively understand your intent and what you want it to generate. That's awesome. So some cool stuff there. We'll continue to share as an organization things that we improve about, Nigel and other breakthroughs that we come up with from an AI perspective over time. I am curious, as we think about our listeners or our viewers and sort of the wealth of information out there. We talked about this in the first couple of episodes on the pod. We talked about how many different large language models are out there, how many different companies are bringing new capabilities, tools, and experiences to the table on a regular basis, and that it's tough to orient. I know we said, hey, if you can buy right now because it's part of a suite you already use, like Office 365 or Google Suite, you should do it and experiment and play around with it. But what about thinking about all the different large language models and the more technical implementations of custom solutions? Ryan, I think you have some thoughts around that.
Yeah, it's a lot of conversations around that. Like when we go to Hugging Face right now, I just checked this morning, we're up to 290,000 models. So which of those do we pick? How do we narrow it down to the first 100,000 that are important? Or do we push it to 10? So a way to really think about that is switch gears to the data science world. Like if you're doing a demand forecasting project and you want to figure out how many widgets are going to be sold next month based on history, you have about 10 options there. Which one's best? Is it the ease of understanding? Is it the smallest error? Is it there's 10 different ways that we can look at that. So you can do ARIMA models, you can do SARIMA models with seasonality, you can do SARIMA X with exogenous variables. Which one of those do you pick? And the same way that we look at those, kind of the science piece of the data science is iteration, hypothesis, look at the best ones and come up with the outputs. So we kind of take that similar path with the LLMs. Which one of your cases is it going to try to solve? We kind of talk about the ease of understanding, which one has the best answers, but let's go at it kind of scientifically. The example we'll show here is a pop quiz that we created to put side by side an actual quantitative values of which LLM is, quote, best. So here's a list of a few of them that we've put together: ChatGPT 4, Llama 2, Claude, GPT 3.5, Zephyr, Mistral, and you see most of them are the 7 billion parameter model. Should we pick the 40 billion parameter or 7 trillion parameters for the next GPT-6 that's coming out? Don't know if that's true. And go after it really in a systematic way, where give it some questions. A juggler has 16 balls. Half the balls are golf balls. Half of them golf balls are blue. How many blue golf balls are there? And throw all of those models at it and see which one comes up with the actual right answer. Go through some complex reasoning and thoughts that says it takes Amy 4 minutes to climb the top of the slide. It takes her 1 minute to slide down. How long does each trip take? Give it in excruciating detail so you can actually see the thought process and put them side by side. Maybe one of the models do better in certain situations. So we have a multitude of different questions that we put together, logic, some math, some reasoning, to really go side by side to see which one's better. And
so,
when we put... Yeah.
Just a quick question, Ryan. So what I'm hearing here is this helps, I think, paint a through line of a lot of the main themes we've been talking about across the pod as well. And that is you have to understand what you're trying to accomplish from an objective or goals perspective in your digital products or in your organization so that you can understand how you want your users to engage with these solutions and what dimensions you're assessing. Like I mentioned earlier, is it a task they must accomplish? Is it a pain point they're experiencing? Is it an opportunity to create value? And that will maybe help you narrow in on the personas who are using these tools and how they may interact with them, which could inform then what sort of questions to throw at a variety of models here to gauge their efficacy. Is that fair?
Precisely right. Yeah, like maybe some of these math and reasoning don't make sense. Maybe some of the creativity aspects, maybe some of the legal implications of a specific state are more important. Another example is language, polyglot or not. Can it do multilingual? So we did an evaluation. One of our team members on our team checked out multiple LLMs. You see Falcon, Llama, Falcon, Mistral, Red Pajama. All our favorites are there, and they did an LLM performance across multilingual. Maybe you're doing a multilingual application that you need that to be able to translate between. These are the types of questions that are important to you, not if it can count the number of balls.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt you.
No.
But there's a couple levels of this that's really interesting. This is what I like. There's an engineering problem here, right? What's the right tool for the job and how do you break it down, right? First, what is the baseline model that's going to be relevant for your problem set, right? LLM or machine learning, it's the same thing. What's the output you're looking for? What data are you training on, right? If you need multilingual, here you go. We have a great assessment of what the right LLMs are to start with. What are the attributes of the LLM? Context window. I haven't done this myself, but I imagine, for example, if you're a publisher that is reviewing and editing novels, right? You have a huge context window, meaning that you can upload or interact with more tokens as part of a question response. Well, you can upload an entire novel and then ask questions about it. Again, I haven't tried this, but I imagine that it would be better at saying, hey, what are there some flow issues with the stories or the movement from chapter to chapter? It can find common editing errors, right? It can do that easily, right? But you have this large context window to work with. So a publisher might want to start with that. And then once you choose the right LLM, what are you trying to do with it? What kind of output are you trying to get? That dictates how you interact with it, right? Are we going to work primarily with engineering prompts and making sure that we get the right response? Or do we need it to better understand the way we want to communicate or write responses, right? Does it need to understand verbiage or nomenclature specific to our business domain? Then we might want to fine tune it. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in the future for these hybrid solutions built on the right foundational models that are really, really powerful by understanding, depending on the use case, again, the right context to answer the question, and then fine-tuned based on a response that is really relevant to the way you or your organization operates and writes.
And I think it ties in perfectly to another piece of that, which is the prompting piece of it, right? Maybe certain models react differently to the prompts themselves. And this not only applies, you mentioned LLMs, but also the image world. I've been personally playing around with creating a lot of our slides and transition slides to be generated content. I just created this one. We're doing a client for a farm, and EJ actually called me out on this. I was like, man, this is kind of cool. Until you start to zoom in, and there's a cow with the head coming out of the side of it. And it kind of got me down this other rabbit hole, which is around the prompting itself and how to get better at this. There's so many cool resources out there to be able to support this. Twitter is an example of some cool imagery on how did they build this. And they actually show, if you add data moshed text and put subject, it puts these cool, almost matrix-like images over top of it. Here's some really cool imagery that's photorealistic, absolutely amazing images of an eagle. Here's a velociraptor, and here's the prompt that they used. I tried it and it worked perfectly. Here's some stickers and logos that were created. Here's some landing page website design, and understanding and researching it and finding out how to be a better prompter is just as important as the context and what you're building behind the scenes.
You know, Ryan, I kind of want to use that cow picture, the head coming out of the middle, just to see if people are paying attention to decks that we create. Exactly. I think that's a great call out. You know, we might have mentioned this previously on the podcast, but you know, prompt engineering as a skill set, I firmly believe that's going to be analogous to a decade or two ago when people were putting fluent in Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and Excel on their resumes. Like, prompt engineering will be a core skill set of the workforce. As of now, it is becoming as important as understanding the general tools that are used in the matter or in the course of day-to-day business, and in understanding how to engage with digital platforms like Google or Bing if you're a Binger. And prompt engineering is the next phase of that. How do you phrase your request in a way that generates the output in a way that you can leverage, and then how do organizations tailor those solutions to meet their unique requirements?
Yep. I just updated my resume this week and put Nigel in there and got rid of expert Clippy user.
Oh, congratulations.
Wow. Yeah. And freshening up your resume?
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything we should be aware of there?
Nope.
Okay. Just checking.
Just coming for your job, Brownie. Okay, so cool stuff there. That's a lot of important information, I think, as people think about LLMs. It isn't go pick a model off the shelf and try it. It's put together a set of criteria that you use to evaluate the tools that you're going to use, and have if a rubric is something that resonates with you, build one, but have a way that you can understand whether or not a model is going to be more or less effective in the solution that you build for your internal use case or externally facing. I'd love to pivot here in the last few minutes to just some thoughts about the future. A big call out, if you haven't watched it, watch the Dev Day videos from OpenAI. I know a lot of them are available on YouTube already. They have a website for OpenAI's Dev Day that talks about some of the cool features they're releasing. GPT-4 Turbo, multimodal interactivity, 128K context window. Some really cool stuff, right? One of the important things I think to note about that is what you're seeing OpenAI do right now is release features, watch the evolution of use cases in the market, the startups that are born, the companies that do press releases on what they're building, and then use that, I don't have specific intel on this, but I think to inform their backlog, and then release those features as part of their core platform. It's a really smart way to manage the evolution of their product ecosystem, because they have their own guiding principles, their own vision of where they want to go, but they're also rapidly iterating based on what they see happen in the market. And I have not seen an organization sense and respond that quickly to market use cases up to this point. So it's really important, I think, to watch some of the leaders. I think it's also fair to say that people who are leading in the space right now, because it's such a disruption available space, may not be the leaders in a year. But I do think there's some concerted effort for the major players like Meta, Google, Microsoft, OpenAI to stay on top. I also think that the important things for people to remember is it's still not magic, right? There are still context and memory window limitations. There's still high possibility for hallucination when you're engaging in like text generation. Specifically, you must have, we've said this since the first episode, I think, you must have a human in the loop when you're using this tool in a professional environment, right? You must have people whose knowledge, expertise, skills, and history working in the space can vet the output of the large language model of the generative AI to make sure that it's highly effective. And I also think that it's important to note that these solutions are in no way a set it and then forget it kind of situation, right? Like these require teams that manage the evolution of the ecosystem, that manage the data, that manage the platform over time. And if you're doing highly bespoke things, like Brownie, you've been talking about from a fine-tuning perspective, that team has to be constantly working on updating the data behind the scenes, right? There's a huge amount of effort for managing bespoke tools internally to make sure they stay relevant and effective as this landscape evolves.
To make sure you don't have cows with heads coming out the side.
Yeah, human in
Indeed.
Yeah.
And let us not forget that while the buzz is around generative AI and we're super excited about it, let's not forget that there's still a ton of use cases for machine learning, for classifying data, for predicting specific outcomes based on a number of complex inputs, right? I mean, we're still super excited about that space and think that there's a ton of opportunity there as well.
And every client conversation that I've had, there is always a part of it that goes back to data hygiene.
Yep.
Understanding your data landscape and effectively managing it in a more optimized and concise way helps you take advantage of emerging technologies like generative AI and others, and helps you solidify and optimize your existing implementation of machine learning models or deep learning models. So all boats rise with the data hygiene effort.
Indeed.
If you haven't watched our previous episodes, please do. And I'll run through them just at a high level. Maybe we'll talk about a few key insights coming out of each of those as we wrap up this part of the series here. We started off with sort of our introduction. This was the onboarding to This is AI, help folks understand sort of where the practical applications of AI as a category are, and generative AI in particular. So some good discussion around how to unlock value for business and not get kind of caught up in the hype train of AI as a whole. And then I think we had one of my favorite episodes in the series initially, and that was what comes first, the use case or the tech. A lot of really great debate and discussion there around figuring out how to identify the right use cases and not getting too narrowly focused on generative AI use cases. You always want to bring it back to the problem, right, guys? The core business problem to solve, the goals, the strategy you have as an organization, and center it around your user. What are the jobs to be done? What are the pain points? What are the gain opportunities? And not get too narrowly rabbit holed in the world of just a generative AI use case.
Rabbit hold?
Is that a thing?
I think you meant pigeonholed, maybe?
Pigeonholed?
Because rabbit hole...
You go down a rabbit hole and you get pigeonholed?
Yeah, maybe.
Something, yeah.
Yeah.
But don't do that. Whichever one
don't.
of those you don't want to do, don't do those. We also talked a little bit about kind of prompt engineering at a high level, how to manage access to information and some of the other cool stuff that we would cover in the series. Which then took us into a couple of our deep dive podcasts, and that was the deep dive on Coverage Oracle. We demoed a tool that we built to help in the healthcare space. We also talked about the varying sort of effectiveness of different technologies, whether it was, the OpenAI, ChatGPT, or GPT models that you have access to over API, or if it was some of the open source models like Llama 2 and others. We also talked about the incredible importance of data security when you're talking about using proprietary information to train these models and how you want to limit exposure to those in the public space. And then, some of the lessons that we learned in that whole process were about how to effectively manage the technical constraints, build a scalable technical architecture, and then understand when to buy versus when to build from a large language model perspective. We also then did in our next episode, which was the one right before this one, a deep dive on software development in the generative AI space. There's a lot of stats getting thrown around out there. Depending on who you listen to, you might hear 50% reduction in time to deliver code, or you might hear something much more rational, which I think we're closer to aligning to, is 15 to 20% kind of efficiency when using generative AI, because code is not a flat burn rate from start to finish. There's activities that require thought leadership and problem solving, not just code generation, and there's varying levels of skills and aptitude when you think about using these tools and when you think about generating high quality bug-free code in the future. So we covered a lot of information about how to use GitHub Copilot in particular, and then some of our thoughts around how to use these tools and capabilities in the generative AI space as you build your own internal organizations and your development capability. Brownie and Ryan, anything that kind of stood out from the both of you about our previous episodes, things that you want to make sure our listeners are focusing on or aware of as we think about these dimensions of the category of AI, use case identification, building proofs of concept, or supporting internal tooling?
Just one quick one there is like just the holistic vision that we talked about of it's not just Gen AI, it's not just AI, it's not just ML, it's all of those together that form these use cases. So I think that's a powerful differentiator here.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ryan. That's a great point. We have some ideas about content we'd like to share. We'd also love to hear what you want to hear about. We've done a few different things here. We've talked about industry trends. We've talked about strategy. We've talked about specific use cases. We've done deep dives. We've done some show and tell. What did you like? What didn't you like? Please let us know. You can get in touch with us at westmonroe.com. You can find us on LinkedIn at West Monroe. Reach out. Let us know what you thought of the pod. Did you like the audio only? Did you enjoy watching the video? Were you multimodal? We want to keep this going, so we're only saying goodbye for now, and we want to hear from you what you want to hear about next. We have some ideas, but it's better when it's collaborative. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks,
See
all.
you on the next one.
It's been real. Hey, guess what?
AI.
Yeah.
Boy.
Out.